All right, Quincy here. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about suicide. I have a guest today. His name is Austin Berry. He had a terrible experience in the past when his friends passed away. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'll let him share his story. All right, so can you describe the events leading up to and following the suicide of your friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I was probably in ninth grade. I want to say it was about ninth grade. Going into my 10th grade year, it was a summer, freshman and sophomore year summer. We were all hanging out, and we were at my buddy's camp out in Toledo Bend. It's about five of us. Three of them were my really close friends. The other two didn't really know them too well, but I consider them pretty good friends. You know, we all hung out, same friend group and everything, and for the past like month, it was about, man, you look at somebody and you know that they're not all there. Things were kind of like it'd be one event after another, for another after another, that just kind of a steady gradual downfall of just kind of, like attitude, I guess you would say. And the way he um the way he took his life was actually, we were all in a room, and he walked into the room, didn't know life. You look at somebody and they don't look there. You know, he was real white, had a real pale face, was sweating real bad, looked like he had been dehydrated for hours and hours. And we had asked him a couple questions. Like, we were all messing around, had drinking, doing whatever that, like, earlier that night. And this is probably about, I don't even know what time it was, man. I think it was like nine, right around 9 o'clock. And he walked into the room and had a little, it was a good, I can't remember what pistol it was, but a little old pistol, man. And had just one little chamber in it. You know, walked right into the room and just just screamed, and just literally put a bullet straight through his chest right here. It was a little circle. You could see it. We were able to see his autopsy and everything because we were close to him. And literally, that was one of the things that, I mean, just being able to witness that was by far the downfall it led to me throughout high school was immaculate. It really was. I didn't want to talk to anybody after that. For about a year, I didn't talk to anybody. I um I sat there and basically basically looked at people and gave them an unfair advantage. You know, I didn't want to associate with anybody. Didn't want to talk to anybody. All I could all I could image in my the only image in my head was literally just that night, the amount of blood that was on the ground, all the different things that just piled up after the fact. That and it was I think it was the thing that scarred me the most was knowing that he was fighting with something. They said, like, the doctor told us that he had previous doctor's appointments there, and like that he had told his family, the doctor didn't disclose this to us, his family did. And his family told us that basically he had been going through, like, the past months, been going through bipolar issues, a bunch of different issues. And I mean, none of us could ever tell. You know, like, as a friend, you're not gonna really be able to see that kind of a thing. You could, like I said, there was gradual events that led to his downfall until his ultimate taking of his life. And we were just sitting there, and when his mom told us that, I was that's what ate me alive. Was that I couldn't see what should have been seen. You know, I was sitting there just trying and trying and trying for months and months and months, leading on to probably 2.5 years. From my sophomore year all the way until the end of my junior year, I didn't talk to anybody really. I played baseball and that was it. I played sports, went to school, went to my sport, didn't really talk to anybody, didn't do anything social. I stayed in the house, didn't want to go anywhere, just felt like the only place that was safe for me was my house. And so it became very social, became very socially awkward. And that's what led to me having such a great depression. My depression was absolutely horrible when it came to that kind of thing. Um, more basically it was the fact that the fact that I had to the fact that I had to see something like that. As I said, it I don't hate him. I don't hate him as a person. I would never say I would hate anybody that would ever take their life. As selfish of it is, I believe it's a very selfish thing. I believe it's very taunting. But I've also been through. I've came very close encounters with taking my own life. I've been face to face with a couple of revolvers. I've been on top of a bridge, or we had a bridge that was little little old bridge, man. It's probably about 4 stories high, and the right underneath it was solid ground, but there was water right kind of close to it. And I sat there for just hammered, drunk, just was probably off 12, 13 beers, man. Just out of my mind, didn't know what to do. Was sat there a little on the edge, sat there crying for 2, 3 hours.
I can definitely relate to that with the bridge. So I never really had that experience with the bridge, but still, um, I never really had that experience with the bridge.
Right.
But I did like sort of look down at a balcony and just like, man, why am I here? Like, what's going on? So I definitely can relate to that.
Absolutely.
Um, I don't know. It's just, I definitely get it. I definitely get it.
It's definitely tough, man.
Um, so how does this like overall, this whole event affected your daily life overall?
Like I said, so I was probably a sophomore. I was going into my sophomore year of high school, and probably about, like I said, about a year and a half. Didn't really talk to anybody. Was very socially awkward. Led to me being very depressed, very anxious when it came to human encounterment, and things just weren't things weren't stable in my life. It wasn't until about 3 years ago when I was going into basic training was when I finally was like able to cope with it. I was able to be like, I don't hate you. I hate what you did. I hate how you did it, why you did it, and it just the day to day was very rough. I'd wake up in the mornings very sluggish, very out of touch with my own self. I felt like I couldn't even look at my own self in the mirror. Like I felt like I didn't really even want to like really know that I was alive. I felt like I wanted just to be almost be like an NPC in the world. Like just not be here, just be drifting, just be a part. And for years, man, for like those next 3 years, I constantly woke up, just ran throughout the day, didn't talk to anybody. Was of course I had multiple thoughts in my mind of just why not me do the same thing? Like, why not me just go ahead and do this and take my own life and just end all this suffering that I'm going through right now. It's easier just to end it. And now that I look back on it, definitely don't think so. But it definitely affected my mental, definitely affected me physically, my body. I probably lost like 20, 30 pounds within those year and a half. I want to say I probably lost 20, 30 pounds. I was like 145 in high school. I ended up being like 120 when I was almost about to graduate.
Hmm.
I was like 120, 125. It's very little, very slim. Didn't eat much. Couldn't eat. Didn't feel like eating. Didn't drink water or anything like that. Just I would, like I said, was just living. Was just living life. Didn't have a purpose. That makes sense.
I can understand that. Um, so a lot of things people don't really understand when I talk about PTSD, that one way of it is you lose a friend that tried to take their life. That's PTSD. That's a traumatic experience. Um, a lot of people really don't think about that. They think of just military, other stuff, but that is definitely one. Um, Overall, like as far as mental health, like after that, like what do you think about it? Like,
My truthful answer now, if I'm gonna be honest, is sucks. I still deal with it. I still think about what I could have done. That's the biggest thing now is what I could have did to prevent it. And in the time that when it did happen in the year, about a year and a half after, that like until I graduated, that span of time, I was sitting there and the thing that really ate me alive was why? Why did you do it? Why do it in front of all of us? And what was the purpose of doing it all in front of us? Because like I said, there was 3 other people in the room. I mean, including me, there was 2 other people, and both of those guys we've had long conversations about what we've dealt with, what they dealt with, and they've both dealt with the same thing I have. Was why would you do it? Why do it in front of all of us? Like what was going through his mind at the time? Like I think that was the biggest thing in high school was I was so busy trying to figure out what was going through his mind to like really do that because it's such a bizarre thing to do. You never hear anybody like I've never heard anybody else's story. Like I've heard a lot of stories. Everybody has a good story. You know what I mean? It sucks. I hate that a lot of people have it, but I was so like I looked it up. I was searching the internet trying to figure out if anybody else had a story like mine, and there really wasn't. There was only I think I found one article about it was like a big article about this guy that had he was literally he was on like a video camera or whatever. He had like called his parents or something like that. Called like all his parents and everything. Like a bunch of them were on his FaceTime or something like that. And he was standing on my bridge, literally jumped with the phone, and they just boom, was dead right there. And the whole family had a traumatic moment because they drove up to the scene where he was, and the man was literally just on the ground splattered. I mean, so ultimately, it was definitely hard. Like now fighting with it, I try. Nowadays, I really just I wish I could sit down face to face with him and really wonder why he did it. I still have that question of why. What was going through his mind at the time? Why did he do it? What made him blank out and just say F it, this is it. And but more than that, I wish I could have a conversation of just what could I've done to help you? You know? So I feel like at the end of the day, the best way to get through any depression, anything like that is find a close friend group. Find somebody that's gonna be able to rely on, like that you can rely on, no matter if they're dealing with something or you're dealing with something. At the same time, you could be dealing with something terrible at the same time. At the end of the day, if y'all can still talk about it, still come to a group, still come to a decision that, hey, I'm dealing with this, you're dealing with this, maybe we can help each other out right here. Um, like a friend group that was my biggest way of getting out of my depression was I found a friend group that was very active in the social life. They not not like going to bars and things like that. More of just they go play football. They go play intramural and stuff like that. Like have like a little like basketball session, stuff like that. And that was that was where I was like, why didn't that work for him? Because I thought we were a great group of guys, man. I mean, I love all the guys that were still in that group. I'm still best friends with, and we, I mean, I guess you could say we could have been a lot better friends. You know, there's definitely those moments where you look there, like you sit down, and you think it to yourself, and you're like, what could I have done better as a friend to him to make things a lot better.
You know, I'm kind of sort of thinking that I don't know his situation. I don't know what he was going through, but I feel like maybe he was kind of feeling the same way I feel sometimes, overwhelmed, but trying to hold it all in. You guys probably seem like all happy and everything. That's just balling everything in, and then eventually it's just can't take it and just do something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 times that I tried to end it all, that was what was going on in my head. Like I just felt overwhelmed from holding everything in, and just so I kind of get it.
I definitely can see that because, like I said, I tried to take my own life, and during that year and a half, that was by far the worst time of my life. I mean, I'm fairly young, only 21, but a lot of like I've had a traumatic life so far. My life's definitely a lot better now. I can 100% agree with that. Um, Definitely still deal with a lot of issues, but like I said, like I know where I agree where you're coming from because there was definitely that time where I felt like I didn't have anybody. I had many of friends that loved me and that cared for me and that were always going to be there for me. I just, I guess I never wanted them to know what was going on. I guess I wanted them to know that I was this happy-go-lucky, always positive kind of guy. Yet behind closed doors, I was sitting there crying. Like I would sit there and cry the whole time and everything like that. But so my aunt's actually a therapist. She's an emotional support therapist. It
Okay.
specializes in emotional support. Um, they're they have there's so many outlets you can take to find help. But yeah, so the emotional support with my aunt was by far the best thing that I sought out was her. She would sit down with me for about an hour a day for 2 to 3 days a week, and she'd sit down for me about an hour, hour and a half, and just let me unload all my feelings. Let me just debrief everything that I had been feeling, everything that was overwhelming me. And she was very open, very like she was very open with me. She loved me. It was good that it was my aunt and that it wasn't somebody I didn't know. But I definitely think that anybody, no matter who it is, if you feel like you can't talk to anybody, you can. Just try. At least try to talk to somebody. Um, talking to somebody was probably the biggest thing that led me to getting out of a depression. Was the biggest thing that led me to understanding a lot other people, like a lot of other people when it came to when they have depression. My One of my other best friends, his name's I don't want to say his name. I don't want to drop him on, but
Yeah.
great guy overall. He was dealing with a lot of bad things. He had a terrible breakup. Just didn't know what to do. Had multiple breakups. And when I looked at him, I was like, "Hey man," I was doing well. And "Man," he was like, "No." Just looked at me, and was honest, and he was like, "No, man, I can't." He was like, "Just I'm dealing with a lot of crap right now. It's just my head's overwhelmed. I feel like everything's going against me. I feel like everything's just fighting against me right now." And I was like, "I understand. Like I understand where you're coming from." And just being able to talk to somebody, being able to be there, no matter who it is, what it is, just a little encounterment. I feel like now like nowadays what I do for like people I love to call people. Like if it's, even if it's only for like 30 seconds to be like, "Hey man, I hope you're doing good. Oh, like I just want you to know I love you, and you know that I'm always here for you. If you ever need to call me, anything like that. Like even if we don't even talk that much anymore, like I'm still here. I've dealt with a lot of things. I've been through a lot. My emotions are I'm very bland with my emotions. It's that event definitely caused me to have very bland, very unseasoned emotions. I don't like to talk about it, but at the same time, as I grow older, I like to talk about it. I like to give other people the satisfaction of knowing that they're not alone
Hmm.
and that there's other stories out there.
I agree.
And so just I think that was the biggest thing for me was was knowing that there was other stories. I wasn't alone with my story. Like even though I had looked up online and there wasn't very many, there was only like maybe a handful that I could find. I knew that there was a handful like me that made it through it that could talk about it. And that's why when you invited me on this podcast, you were asking me, would you mind talking about it? And I would love to. I said I would love to because not many people are. A lot of people are gonna try to keep their story in, don't want to talk about it too much. But I believe if you open up and you tell people what you've been through, what you've done, how you handled it, it's a little bit easier. They can understand a lot more. There isn't that un- the unwillingness, or I guess you said the unsteadiness of wanting to talk to somebody.
So I'm really curious. How did this all affect your family life? I can tell you, me, in the beginning, kind of grew distant with my family. Kind of a little quite closed off.
Yeah.
Dating was hard.
Oh,
So I'm
100%.
curious, like, how did that happen with you?
So me and my mom actually were very close before the incident. Very, very close. After the incident happened, me and my mom were probably like we're like hero villain, like protagonist, antagonist. Like we're just like bouncing off of each other. We always fight, always get into arguments. I never wanted advice from her. Always wanted to decline her advice. And dating was definitely a big thing too. I didn't date anybody. I dated one girl, and very great girl. She was actually one that helped me kind of increase my life into God and everything, and my Christian life. And um, but yeah, dating was hard. I like I said, I was very bland with my emotions. Didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't want to have any conversations that were gonna be far fetched, as you would say. Like I didn't want to go above and beyond the conversation. Like I would just want to have a little 10, 15 minute conversation at max, and that was it. Like, and I wanted to cut it off and just leave. I wanted to be by myself. So yeah, dating was hard. Me and my mom were very, very, very distant from each other. Like we didn't want to talk to each other. We didn't want to have any kind of contact with each other. But ultimately, it was.
Um, do you have any triggers, or better yet, do you recognize what those triggers are, and how do you avoid them?
It's a great question. Um, I would say probably one of my biggest triggers is social media.
That's the first.
I There's a lot of things on social media that eat me. Like I'll see something that kind of offends me, and it affects me a lot. It affects me the way I want to like go about certain things, the way I want to do things. Like I said, my social life was probably the hardest thing I could do. So being on social media, seeing people comment certain things on my post, seeing people like say certain things, just was terrible. It was terrible for my mental. It was terrible for all that. So I blocked out social media for a while in my life. Didn't I wasn't on social media. I was on social media when I was a freshman in high school. I got rid of it my sophomore year and didn't get it back until I was a senior. And when I was a senior, when I was a senior, it was almost like when I would try to have certain conversations with people. It was if they said anything that I didn't like, I would done immediately. Was done. Just it was either going to be a very bad argument or I was done. Like I would just literally shy away from the conversation, would leave. And so that was probably my biggest trigger was the like was if somebody would say something wrong to me, or like if something if let me rephrase that. If it's something didn't want to hear, if it wasn't something I wanted to hear, I would cut myself off immediately. Would just end it right then and there. But I definitely realized a lot of triggers. Definitely realized a lot of things that have kind of grown over time that affected me. I was afraid of pistols for a while. Hated guns for a long time. Hated guns because of it. Just because I knew of what damage it could do, and it didn't take it didn't it took me a couple years to realize that it wasn't the gun; it was the person holding the gun. It was the person that is in control of the gun. Because at the end of the day, you can, if you really want to take your life, there's multiple things that you can do. So it's never the object, it's always the person. And so like that was one of my triggers was I saw like my dad owned a lot of pistols. My dad owned a lot of guns in the house, and I told him I was like, Dad, I can't be around this. Like I'd freak out if I saw a gun. Like I would like shake and like shiver, and like when I'd like have cold sweats. When it would just like it was terrible. Like, I just couldn't see a weapon. Didn't want to. Like would perfectly fine without going and seeing it. And nowadays, now I shoot in fours. I have three pistols of my own. I mean, I own weapons now. I'm very in tune with it. I've seen what could happen with a weapon, but I know now that it's all about your emotions. It's all about the person who is holding the weapon, things like that, and just essentially that.
I'm really curious how you were able to overcome that fear of a firearm.
Yeah.
Me personally, anything that goes boom. Matter of fact, for the past 3 years, I have not been to a single Fourth of July event or New Year's event.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
like just I don't know the boom, the fireworks, like all of that. Like I just can't deal with it.
Right.
So I'm really curious how you were able to overcome that fear of firearms. Maybe I can incorporate that, my fear of those noises
Yeah.
and stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to say wasn't easy.
Mhm.
It wasn't easy by any means. It took me a long time. It took me a very long time to get over it. Like I said, my dad had multiple weapons in the house, and would always have weapons. And but my dad said when I was growing up, like I told him like I can't see weapons. Like I don't want to see it. My dad knew of what had happened to me, and he was very luckily. I had a great dad, a phenomenal dad. He hid all the weapons in the house from me, made in places that I couldn't reach, places that I wasn't gonna go. He put the pistols and put his weapons and stuff like that. But I think the ultimate thing that led to me being able to hold a weapon again was my dad. Actually, he brought me to a firing range. Didn't tell me where we were gonna go. Didn't tell me what we were gonna do. Brought me to a firing range, and when we walked up, didn't know what it was, man. I didn't. All I saw was guns and ammo, and I was like freaking the fuck out. Like was freaking the hell out, and ended up ended up being able to. My dad he gave me a. We were sitting at the range. He gave me a pistol. He was like, "I want you to just to hold it." Didn't have any ammo in it. I didn't know it didn't have any ammo in it. Didn't have anything in it. He's like, I just want you to hold it. He said, just sit there for a little bit and just hold it. And so I sat there, held it, freaking out, bawling my eyes out, holding this, like holding. It was like I want to say it was like a little 229. It was like a 22, like it was like a P33 9, something like that. Say, and was just sitting there holding, like it was sitting there holding the pistol, like hands sitting like this, couldn't like no ammo was in the weapon, and my dad was like, pull the trigger, like pull the trigger, and my dad was a very don't know if this is what you should do. I don't know if that was the best way about going over my fear of weapons and things like that. Looking back at it, I'm very happy he did it. Very glad he did what he did. I was very, it could have went very sideways. That like the whole situation could have went very sideways.
All right, so that's it for today's episode. Barry shared his story, really interesting story. If you guys want to share your story, please feel free to follow and subscribe, leave a comment, and I promise I'll reach out to you guys. Next episode will be on Tuesday.